So this is my light and water nature, civilization, light and water civilization, a shield trigger deck. All the cards in here are monsters. They're all shield triggers except for Chimera, the Oracle. Because of its low cost, costing 4, and the ability to take the top card of your deck and put it face down into your shield zone, this allows you to keep your shields at a high number, keep refilling your shields. And since pretty much the whole entire deck is all shield triggers, whenever your opponent does hit one of your shields, you will get the effect. And that is the whole point, is your opponent to attack, and because they attacked, you get something out of it. And since the triggers are creatures, you will have something you can block with, something you can attack with, of course. And that's the whole idea. It's kind of like a trap. You're setting a trap, and your opponent, if he damn if you do, damn if you don't. Because if he doesn't attack, well, then you're just gonna summon monsters, hard summon as they call it, right? You're just gonna hard cast. Is what I mean. You'll summon monsters, and you'll attack anyway. So it's a double-edged sword. They damn if they do, they damn if they don't. If they do attack you, especially Red Rush, for example, if opponent is summoning and attacking you, hitting your shields, you're getting something out of it. You're getting a monster out of it. You know what I mean? And then the monsters have abilities. For example, we have Hunter Cluster. Has 1,000 power, not too strong, but it's enough to break a shield, right? Plus, it's a blocker. So if your opponent so happens to have 2 creatures, and he attacks with one, breaks your shield, which just happens to be Hunter Cluster, then you can summon Hunter Cluster, right? And then you could block the second attack. So one shield was able to protect, you were able to defend from 2 attacks. Instead of losing 2 shields, you only lost 1, right? Then moving on, we have Aqua Jolter, costs 3 to cast. It's a 2,000. Pretty decent. Of course, the power would have been higher if it wasn't for the fact that it's shield track. And all it is just a decent 2,000 beater. It can kill most monsters, not many, but enough, especially the weaker ones. Especially when somebody goes in for pays 1, summons a creature that costs 1, has 1,000 power, attacks. Because let's say it has the speed ability, or even if there's a 2,000 that has the speed attack ability, summon, attack, right? Or just a drop first turn, the one drop, and then the second turn, they attack you. Either way, since they dealt the first damage, if they hit any of your shields, which will give you great advantage, by the way, if they just happen to hit Aqua Jolter, of course, you have a 2,000 that can easily take down a 1,000 monster. But it's a cheap, monster, and it's shield trigger, so it's something. Then for cost of 4, it's a light and a water civilization creature, multi-civilization, and shield trigger, of course, and it's a blocker and has 1,000. It's just like the Hunter Cluster, except it has the added ability that when this creature would be destroyed, either by battle or a card effect, return it to the hand. So you constantly will have a blocker as long as you can afford 4, and 2 of those have to be 1 water and 1 light civilization. As long as you can afford it, you always have a blocker. So that's awesome. And then of course it's shield trigger, so the chances of it hitting the field just like the cluster scenario, Hunter Cluster scenario, right? But then it'll go back to your hands, so that way next turn you can just hard cast it back onto the field, and you have some defense, so you won't run out of creatures. An added thing about Aqua Skydiver is that you want to combo that with your Chimera the Oracle. As you can see, Chimera Oracle has 1,000 power. When it gets attacked while tapped, you know, it's only 1,000, it can easily get killed. But because it's cheap, I'm currently using it. But there is an alternative to it, so I might as well show you right quick. Bogolf, the spy droid, it has 3,000 more power, so it's a 4,000, and it has the same ability. While tap during your the start of your turn, you take the top card of your deck and you place it into your shield zone face down. So this is how you can replenish your shield. It costs 2 more, so it takes a little bit longer to cast. You can do whatever you want. You could even play 2 copies of these and then 2 copies of Chimera, whichever way you want. You know, pick and choose. If you can stall long enough to get this bad boy on the field and then use him, all great. I'm just trying to speed it up. You know, the faster you get to your strategy, which is, you know, you want to fill up your shield zone, because every time your opponent hits your shields, of course you have less shields, and you want to refill them. That way you can constantly keep getting free monsters. And that's the thing, you want to have more monsters to your opponent, you want to deal him more damage. But anyway, you want to protect them. So for a cheap cost, you can use Aqua Skydiver over and over again to constantly block for your Chimera the Oracle, because you have to keep it tapped in order to keep getting that ability. There are, in the Japanese, or the OCG, whatever you want to call it, right? In the Japanese version of the game, where they do have some monsters which are slightly better. I like the one that you discard a creature card from your hand, then you take the top card during your end phase, by the way. Take the top card of your deck and then place it into your shield zone. I prefer that one. And of course, this whole deck is all monsters anyway, so you can always afford it. And all your cards are shield triggers, except for, you know, that monster. And that monster only costs 3, and there is one that costs 5 that you could use. It's slightly stronger, but you want to get your engine rolling, right? And the sooner you get, even if you just get 1 or 2 shields out of the monster, it's, you know, it's something, because that's essentially 2 extra creatures you can summon if you get hit, and then use it against your opponent. Moving on, Aqua Surfer, obviously really good shield trigger creature. Its attack is only 2,000, not so strong, but it's good enough. But the main thing is, when it enters the battle zone, you choose a creature in the battle zone and return it to their owner's hand. Obviously, you use this on your opponent's creatures. Definitely anything like evolution creature, or just a big problematic creature that costs your opponent a lot. Since the game there is summoning sickness, which means when you first summon a monster, it cannot attack unless it has the speed attacker effect ability. It will, when your opponent summons, it can't attack, right? So you want to take advantage of that, and when you have your Aqua Surfer summon, you bounce their monster back to the hand, and now the monster he has to resummon it the following turn, since there's no main phase 2. So he has to wait a whole turn to resummon it, and by then you'll probably have a blocker to block anyway, especially when you have something like a infinite blocker like Aqua Skydiver. And of course, this is useful in case this is like your last shield, for example, and your opponent has 2 creatures and your opponent attacks with one of them. You could be like, alright, Aqua Surfer, balance your second monster so you can't attack me for game, and that would give me a second turn to make a move, to make a play. And of course, sometimes you end up in a scenario where your opponent might be down to his last shield, or he has no shields, and Aqua Surfer, you know, gives you the game because you made it what they did and end you out. You know, I think it's Tadomi though, right? They don't end you out, and then you ended them out instead. I've done that before many times, where Aqua Surfer like, oh yeah, Aqua Surfer, I won because now it'll be my turn. I get to attack, and I go for Tadomi down. Alright, so moving on. Fantasy Fish, 2000 power blocker, shield trigger. Enough said, right? It's 2000. You see a lot of 2000s decks, obviously. A lot of these monsters aren't the strongest in the game, but they're shield trigger, so they're essentially free monsters, and they serve their purpose wherever they can serve, right? Balza, Seeker of Hyper Pearls. It's a shield trigger creature, it's a blocker, and it's 4000. So here we got one of our heavy blockers, one of our heavy hitters. This creature cannot attack players, so you can't attack shields. Interesting story. I used to think that ability, can't attack players, meant you couldn't attack your opponent directly for game, but you could attack shields. So yeah, learn that the hard way. You can only attack creatures with this, but you only really need it mainly as a blocker. But the ability of killing your opponent's monsters, because it is a 4000, it's useful, but mainly you use it for blocking. Poltelister, the spy droid. Could have been called Portal or something. Anyway, it's a shield trigger blocker with 2000 power, and it cannot attack players. So it's a weaker version of Balza. And moving on. Now we know in the OCG there's way better monsters than these, but I mainly only play with and deal with the English version. I really hate that the game stopped being made in English version. You know, either if I had the money to, I would buy the rights just to make the English versions of all the Japanese cards and have them available, but I don't got money like that for that. Because it's drawn in that the Japanese get all the cool shit, while we're stuck with only the first couple sets of the English versions. Like, come on, son, I want my psychic monsters, man. I want an extra deck. All right, Kaloon, the Oracle. It calls for 1000 power shield trigger. It has the ability, when you put the creature into the battle zone, you may tap your opponent's creature in the battle zone. You could choose a creature in your opponent's battle zone and tap it. That's useful because obviously this, if this is summoned by the shield trigger ability, then you'll tap one of your opponent's creatures, because the monster that already attacked and triggered this obviously already is tapped. But you can use this to tap the next monster so you don't get attacked twice. Slowing your opponent down, making it where you can only hit one shield at a time, is very useful, especially when you're replenishing your shields one shield at a time. Granted, if you get two of these chimeras on the field at the same time, both will trigger, both will resolve, and you will get 2 per turn. But this is a 40 card deck, so you will thin out your deck pretty fast doing that. You really only just want 1 at a time. But if you want to go crazy 2 at a time and it works out for you, it works out for you. Especially if you're going up against a double breaker or something like that. But anyway, this is useful, especially if you want to use this effect on a double breaker. You know, you can like, bang, use this to block that double breaker. Definitely useful if you want to stop like a world breaker. But anyway, again, its ability to tap a creature is useful, especially if it was summoned by shield trigger ability, because then on your turn you can use Kaloon the Oracle to kill off that monster if it's weak. Just 1000 powers. I thought would be enough. This card is good when you already have something strong on the field. For example, if you have Balza on the field, which is 4000, which is not that bad of an attack power, you can use Kaloon's the Oracle effect to tap one of your opponent's creatures. That way you can attack it with Balza and kill it. Moving on, Amber Grass. Shield trigger, 3000 power, cost 4. And essentially it's a Aqua Jolter. It's just a vanilla. All it is just a 3000 beater shield trigger creature. So 3,000, not too bad. It's better than 1,000 or 2,000. And then, of course, we got the Chimera the Oracle with 1,000 power, silent skill. At the start of each of your turns, if this creature is tapped, you may keep it tapped and use its silent skill ability, which is add the top card of your deck to your shields face down. So of course, the sooner you get them out, the better. You want to get them out 4th turn. Get them out 4th turn. Double checking in case there's a combo. No, it says your opponent. They're slick because I would like to have used Kaloon's effect on Chimera, you know, to speed up the process. But anyway, on your 5th turn, you essentially will attack with Chimera. Hopefully they don't have a creature at that time, so you can get this effect. Again, the OCG has a better creature that I would rather use because it's cheaper, and it's an end phase effect, which is more useful to me because I don't have to attack. I don't have to keep my creature tapped. I don't have to block for my creature, so I don't have to worry about it getting attacked. I prefer my creature in attack mode, so it can't be attacked because my opponent can only choose my shield triggers for attack targets, and I want them to attack my shields, but I also want to keep filling up my shields so I can keep things going. I mean, on average, this is just like a little draw engine, a little, you know, it's a strategy. It's not necessary. It's just there if you use it, because right off the bat, just having the 5 face down cards, and they're pretty much almost 99% guaranteed to be shield triggers. If your opponent hits 2 or 3 shields, and they trigger their monsters, I'm already going to be in advantage because I can swing for 3 shields per turn, so I can in 2 turns wipe out my opponent. You know what I mean? So you tend to beat them before you even get to utilize a lot of this deck's combos and tricks. You know, just summoning more monsters than your opponent, and then killing his monsters, and then hitting his shields and all that good stuff. You just devastate your opponent a lot faster. And that's the thing, it just, once your opponent realizes that your deck essentially is all triggers, they hesitate even more than before. Because before, if they don't know, they're just going to attack and they're just going to fall for it, which is what you want, the element of surprise. Then once they realize what your deck is based off, then they don't want to attack. Then you got to play it differently. And that's where something like Chimera the Oracle comes in handy, because, well, if you're not going to attack, my shields are just going to get bigger and bigger. I'm going to have more and more shields. I'm going to have a whole bunch of shields. Granted, World Breaker is in effect. And if I'm right, there are some English World Breaker creatures. I haven't had any, played with any, but there probably is English versions, and yeah, definitely Japanese versions, but there are probably English version ones. I know the weakness of this deck is definitely, well, that's a couple cards. I did see a card that makes it where yellow cards, light cards, shield trigger effects don't trigger, so I hate that card, that's for sure. But I haven't really faced that card, but I know it exists, so I hate it just because it can hurt this deck. A lot of my blockers are light. A lot of my favorite shield triggers are light, you know, in this deck, that have pretty fun and decent abilities and attack power. So that card is bad. I can't remember the name at the moment. But then there's 2 monsters. They're dragons. I can't remember their names right now. I think I remember one. Bomedius, that motherfucker. They send my shields to the graveyard, so they don't trigger my shield trigger abilities. So that right there automatically hurts me. So that's a weakness, and I have faced that. I hated that. I saw that thing get dropped on like 3rd turn. I think it was 3rd or 4th turn. I was like, oh my god, because they had the little chicken the Kokuchu, whatever it's called, and they got like 2 on the field, and it just decreased the value. You know, the cost of their bowl meaties dropped it. Essentially, fourth turn, I think, 4th or 5th, something like that. It was around that time. It was sooner than it should have hit the field, and that's the thing. I think he attacked me and realized that I have a shield trigger deck, and because I summoned a creature which had shield trigger. He hit one of my shields, which was a shield trigger, and I just immediately summoned it. Like when I got hit, I just flipped it and summoned it, because I know 99% chance it was gonna be a shield trigger creature. So I just summoned it, and I guess that tipped him off to the idea that my whole deck just consists of shield triggers. He actually did ask and say, "Is your whole deck shield triggers?" I'm like, "Yeah." I guess I should have said no. Why admit it, right? But it was all fun and games. I was just playing for fun. It's not like it was at a tournament or anything of importance. But anyway, I don't want to keep boring you. And this is the end of the deck profile.